it was snowing, and I had gotten my pinhole apparatus together and run over to Central Park to photograph. And just as I was getting ready to photograph this bridge, I saw the woman starting to cross it, so I pulled the Minox out of my pocket and took the Minox print, or picture, and it just appealed to me tremendously aesthetically. It wasn't exactly what I would have had with a pinhole, but the image we ended up with I thought was more appealing.
Why do you think this particular image, taken with a film camera, lended itself very well, if not perfectly, to platinum palladium?
Well, platinum palladium gives a lovely tonal range, particularly in the mid-tones. And you see in here, in this region down below, the very subtle shades of gray that I don't think would print as beautifully with other techniques. The other aspect with platinum palladium, the coating is painted onto rather heavy.
Why don't you lift up the mat so we can see
paper.
this?
And
let's lift up the mat and take a look. Let's take a look at that.
All right.
And let's hold it back to where you have it here so we can get a good picture of that.
So this is the edge of the emulsion. The mixture of the metals are painted onto the watercolor paper, so you have quite thick paper, and with a watercolor brush, and then that is allowed to dry. Then when you make the contact print, you use various solutions that cause the metal to actually precipitate not just on the paper, but also in the paper. The paper itself is moistened or humidified with a mist before the exposure is made, so that after it dries, the material is within the paper, and so it gives a wonderful depth. And an image like this with a pathway under the bridge, and the front of the bridge and the back of the bridge, so you can see through the bridge, gives a depth that is very unique to platinum and palladium.
Built into the paper, practically.
It's obviously the paper is very thin, but it does. Platinum palladium seems uniquely suited to showing images where depth is important, and also the shading of the shades of gray here under the bridge, and the individual branches are all slightly different densities that the platinum palladium bring up.
So my last question to you, Michael, is why should we care about your work?
Well, I think my work probably doesn't appeal to everyone, but it's many of my images are comfortable images that have a kind of nostalgic feel to them. It's a very old technique. They have a beautiful range in tone, but also I'm interested in shapes and figures that interact with each other in nature, both at a very small scale and a very large scale. And many of my images, I think it's difficult to tell whether they're taken in miniature or taken from a long distance. I think particularly the platinum palladium technique gives them a very unique quality. When I first began doing photography full time, I was doing purely digital work, but I became disappointed at the way that images could peel out of the digital printer, much like they're coming out on an assembly line.
Right.
And although many of those images I liked and were popular, I'm so much happier with the kind of handcrafted aspect of the platinum palladium, and the marriage of the digital techniques with the century-old technique of platinum palladium. I think is both unique aesthetically very appealing.